On June 14th, Democratic voters in Charleston County will head to the polls to vote for a new Charleston County Probate Court judge. Today, I talked with one of those candidates, Charleston County Associate Probate Court Judge Tamara Curry, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Judge Tamara Curry, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. I'm always excited to talk to you.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Obviously, you are an associate probate court judge for Charleston County and have been for the past 20 years. And now I understand that you want to become the first female probate court judge for Charleston County. Tell me, why Tamara Curry? Why now?
I've been an associate for 22 years. The time is right. As you've indicated, Charleston County has never had a female elected probate judge. We have elected probate judges in Richland County, Greenville County, Colleton County, Orangeburg County, Horry County.
Yes.
And I just truly believe it's time. It's time. I have a vision that's a little different. I enjoy doing what I do. I practice in all of the courts here. And I believe as the elected probate judge that I would be able to carry on some of the things that I believe would truly help the court as it grows in this new day and this new time.
How much has the court grown in the past 2 years?
Well, I can honestly say with COVID, we have had in the estate division more people who have passed away. For probably every case we close, we may open 1.5. We average anywhere from 250 to sometimes over 300 open new estates every month. When I started 22 years, I remember when we had maybe something around 1,200 to 1,800 open estates. In the height of COVID, we were in the 4,000s. We're now somewhere in the 3,000s, but that is not because we're not actually working the cases. It's just the amount of, number one, litigation, the amount of cases that actually exist. And it usually takes an average of at least 12 months to probate an estate. And if you have additional litigation and other things that are occurring, I have estates that I have had since the year 2008. And that is not because we are not working that case. It's just the amount of litigation that is outstanding. Some of those cases are in the Court of Appeals, waiting for rulings, and some of them are in our state, in the Supreme Court.
Wow.
Our state.
And I want to get back to those that in just a second. Let me ask you, how would your vision be different from the current probate court judge, Irv Condon?
Okay, so as the associate probate judge, I do not have the authority to make budgetary decisions. So I would have that authority to look at what our resources are, how to allocate those resources that I would probably allocate a little differently. I would have the authority to look at community resources and how I actually would partner with some of those community resources, such as if I'm out in a Parker's Ferry and there's a community center and I decide that I want to take staff to that community center, that I would have those particular, I would have the authority related to that, and how we hire individuals, how I rotate schedules. And so I don't make any of those decisions as the associate probate judge. And that is what would be different, definitely.
Now, what resources do you have available right now, Judge?
When you say resources, are you talking?
Yes, ma'am. It's in the budget. What particular resources do you all have?
Well, I mean, every year we have a budget that is approved by council. And as a result of that budget, we have a training budget. We have budgets to order supplies. We have budgets as to what we use for community resources. And so all of that is categorized and is a matter of public information, public knowledge, a budget for staff members, your insurance, your basic salary. So we have a normal budget that's approved by council, but how you allocate those dollars that you are budgeted is what that elected probate judge has the authority to oversee.
And I want to talk more about that in just a few minutes too. But let me ask you, what is the biggest thing that has changed in the probate court in the past 22 years?
I think one of the things that has changed is that people continue to move out to our outlying areas, and population has increased. And with that, Charleston County is almost 95 miles long, about 25 miles wide. And whether you live in McClellanville, Awendaw, Parkers Ferry, Hollywood, Edisto, resources need to be allocated to those areas. Even as I've traveled running for the elected probate judge, I live West Ashley, but it may still take me 45 minutes to get to Edisto. Well, if they need to come down to Charleston County Probate Court, and yes, we do have e-filing, sometimes it's taking people an hour to get there. And then once you get there, you have parking issues. You have to, get from one building to a next. And so I truly think as Charleston County continues to grow, even if we don't have additional budgetary allocations for more staffing, that we have to service these outlying areas better. And in every place I've gone, all of those communities say, we pay taxes. Okay, we pay the same amount of taxes. We want you to remember us. Don't forget about us. Please come out here. And as the associate probate judge for the last 22 years, I have personally gone out in the community and offered seminars relating to wills, trust, and estates. But it should not be just me offering those. I want the entire office to be able to make sure that you are getting the same services that an individual who lives in North Charleston or the city of Charleston, and that we try to look at making this accessible. And it's not just the probate court, because I hear the same thing. They want the same services from the auditor's office and the treasurer's office. And so I can't make promises as a judge, but I can tell you what I will be working towards. And I want to make sure that all of our citizens who are paying taxes feel as though they are being serviced, and that we are looking at all of our constituents.
Now, Judge, let me ask you this. What is the current staff right now at the probate court?
We roughly have, I believe, 21 individuals. So the court is divided into really two large divisions. You have the estate division, and we have a certain number of estate clerks and someone who is at the front desk. And then you have the therapeutic division. Okay. And the therapeutic division is also kind of divided into two other divisions, your guardianships and your conservatorships, and there are 3 clerks. And then you have your therapeutic clerks that do civil, mental, and substance abuse commitments. And then we have marriage license. But in order to have additional staff requires the approval through your budgets again from council.
Okay, let me ask you this, Judge. I'll just jump right into it. But with the recent impact, obviously, of COVID-19, how much delays has the court seen in its revenue collection?
I think, there's a couple of questions. In the therapeutic division, there is no revenue collection. Okay, we offer those services in terms of commitments. That's a service that we are required by state law to do. With marriage license, we have an increase in terms of collection of those revenues. However, for every marriage license that we issue, 20 of those dollars goes to a domestic violence fund. That does not come to the county, and any collection of funds goes to the county. So it does not remain within the court. The same way in the estate division, any funds that you actually collect does not remain with your court. It goes to the council general funds.
Right.
So it's not like, okay, this year, you've collected X amount more dollars, therefore those additional dollars remain with your court. It does not. Goes in the general fund.
General fund. And what was the general fund in 2021?
I'm talking about the general fund for council, for county council, and I'm not sure. Yes.
And the general council general fund that is for the probate court.
Not for the probate court. I'm talking about county council.
Oh, I know
all of those
council.
Dollars, whatever you collect, those dollars go to county. It goes to the county council budget. It doesn't stay. Whatever your budget is, that's what you have that year. So it doesn't matter if you collect additional funds from, let's say, probate court fees. It goes back into county council's budget. Goes to them.
Now, what was
I can get that information for you.
Sure, I understand that. What was the probate? What was the probate court's approved budget in 2021?
The approved budget, if I'm not mistaken, was close to $3 million, but it's divided into all of those divisions. So as a result of that budget, you have the estate budget, you have the guardianship, conservatorship, the budget for commitment, marriage license, and then you're aware that we have 4 specialty courts.
Right.
And so each of those has a separate budget.
Now, what were the budget projections for 2021?
I believe it's still at close to $3 million. But again, it's divided into all of those different separate budgets for those separate different courts.
Now, Judge, was there a decrease or increase from the 2021 approved budget to the 2021 projection because of COVID?
I believe not.
Okay. What were the total expenditures for the probate court?
I can't tell you the exact, because you're asking me about 5 different budgets and I'm not over budgets.
Right.
It's public information, and the only thing that I know that probably went down was travel, because we were not traveling.
Right.
But in terms of our expenses for staff, for the amount of commitments, because when you do commitments, you also have to budget the cost for your examiners,
right,
because you're required to have 2 examiners. You have doctors' budgets. We have transportation budgets. And so all of those remain the same. The fact that we had to order the same amount of supplies. One of the budgetary items that probably went up when COVID started, everyone had to have a laptop. We had to order cell phones for everyone so that when they were home, they were able to operate their offices in the same manner in which they would have been required to do if they were in the office. So some of that increased in terms of making sure everyone had printers at their home. So everything that you needed to operate your office, you had to have that available at home. And so that budgetary item may have gone up, but there were some like postage and may have gone up because we also had to order stamps. So things that would have been done within the office. We were manually mailing items, different things like that.
Now, obviously, when you talk about that budget, it includes your staff. Let me ask you this. What number of experienced staff is eligible to retire within the next 5 years with the probate court?
Again, as the associate probate judge, I don't oversee staff.
Okay.
It depends on when you actually came in as an employee. Some people are under the 25-year rule that you had to have been working at the court for 25 years. Some people are under the 28-year rule. I would say at least probably 4 to 5 people are eligible to retire, but we've had a number of people who have retired. So one of our longtime employees retired during COVID, and I would say probably not 5, maybe 3 people just on the top of my head.
Wow.
But again, as the associate probate judge, I don't make decisions regarding hiring, firing. I'm not a direct supervisor over anyone, but I would have the authority to make those decisions if elected the probate judge.
And if you were elected to probate court judge, let me ask you this. What survey would you do, obviously, on court employees and the external stakeholders?
Okay, what do you mean with survey?
Yeah, a survey on the amount of employees you have right now and how they can actually help with the pace of growth in Charleston County.
Well, number one, I would love to have a couple more employees. For a prime example, our estate clerks average close to 600 cases, just based on the amount of cases that we have. Space is at issue when they we are pretty much maxed out space wise. But I would love a couple more estate clerks, another clerk in the therapeutic division, so that if I were able to flex hours, flex days, that there would be some rotating people who could go out in these underlining communities. And so that's where I would probably go back to counsel and plead for some additional staff members.
Now, those underlying communities, where are they right now in Charleston County, and where do you want to serve?
Okay, Edisto, Hollywood, Parkers Ferry, McClellanville, Awendaw. There are some substations that are open. I'd like to, well, number one, we need to also make sure that we have connectivity. And we do have libraries in some of these areas, but in some areas there's not even a library. And so if we could partner with either churches or community centers where they do have Wi-Fi, and we could flex days where that community knows that the court would be there, even if it's not weekly, even if it's bi-weekly, where we would be there to answer questions, where they could drop off documents, or if they are unable, and even though we have e-filing, if you don't have Wi-Fi in order to do the e-filing, then how are you supposed to scan the documents to the court? So we could bring, printers with scanning availability, and we could go on and assist in having those documents scanned at whatever location that we would have. But those are some of the outlining areas that I'm definitely concerned about in looking at the distance.
And Judge, I know this might be a redundant question, and you talked a little bit about it in the last answer, but will the court be able to create some sort of Charleston County Probate Court Resource Center that provides limited legal assistance to individuals who are handling simple probate matters but cannot afford a lawyer?
Okay, so the court can't give legal advice. The staff can't give legal advice. What we can do is to make sure that we provide procedural advice to you, to offer classes at times that are convenient for people who work. So even though we can't provide legal advice, we can provide resources with different entities throughout the community who can either do it on a sliding scale or who may be able to do it voluntarily. And that's where that additional partnership thing comes into play, in hopes of, setting up opportunities and things where we can look at either lawyers who may be willing to give time, organizations who are willing to assist. Like, there are firms now who will assist with guardianships and conservatorships for incapacitated youth who are getting ready to become 18 years of age, where a guardian ad litem may volunteer their time and there may not be a fee, so that when that person transitions from age 17 to 18 and their adult parent can no longer get information from doctors or even schools. Like, there are some counties, once you're incapacitated and you become 18, they may not give your parent, even though you're under their roof, privileged information where we could assist or partner with groups who will assist us in that manner.
What current private and public and private partnerships do you want to have inside the probate court?
Well, I mean, one of the groups that I constantly provide information, any legal aid, the Center for Heirs Property Preservation, we have their cards up front. When I did rule of show causes,
Right.
I don't make referrals, but they're one of the groups, along with other individuals, legal access group, legal aid. We provide all of that. We could provide all of that information so that when people walk away, they don't have to go and hunt that particular information. It's made available to them. When even things such as bus routes, senior citizen groups, if you have an elder parent and you need an Alzheimer's support group for family members, or there are certain ombudsman services that are provided, is to make sure that this information gets deciphered to the community. If you have a family member and they need to go to a support group, a list of, here are the support groups. These are the ones that are on Zoom. These are the ones that are on in person. Or which support groups that are available for youth, for teenagers, because teenagers don't want to go to a support group for an adult. To make sure that we have all of these resources together and it's made available.
Yes, indeed. And going back to what you said earlier, let me ask you this. How many guardians and conservators for minors and incapacitated persons have you personally appointed?
Okay, so for minors, we do not have authority for guardians for children. Guardianship for children falls under family court. We only appoint conservators in the court for minors. And over the years, the numbers are too numerous to name, because I'm not the only judge that's overseeing guardianships and conservatorships. I believe we currently have close to 800 guardianships and conservatorships that are open, but that doesn't mean that that individual has both of those. Some of them may only have conservatorships, and some of them may only have guardianships. But the only thing that I can tell you is that I preside over all of the courts. In terms of the therapeutic court, the commitment, the primary judge who does those commitments is Judge Peter Quintin, and I am a backup judge for that. The majority of the work that I do is in the estate division, the contested litigation, the guardianships and conservatorships, I started the first mental health court in the state of South Carolina. I still preside over that court on Thursdays, and I am also the backup judge for adult drug court, adult veterans court, and also for juvenile court.
Now, Judge, let me ask you this. How many black families who actually own their own properties here in Charleston County?
I can't say that because those numbers are very hard to obtain because there's no record when you file a deed that says this property is owned by an African American versus a non-African American. What I can tell you is that over the 22 years that I have presided over cases in the estate division is we have a lot of heirs property. We have an inordinate amount of heirs property in the state of South Carolina and definitely in the Tri-County area. We still have families who have failed to probate estates in years, 80 years, 100 years, 60 years. And normally when I see it, either a family member has passed away and the family either wants to sell the property, they either want to make repairs on that property, or they want to do something with the property, or they can't get insurance on the property, and they realize that they have heirs property. And our community needs to be educated on what they need to do if there is heirs property in order to try to clear that title. And we need to stop the bleed of losing our property for failure to pay taxes, or the property has gone into foreclosure. And if it is, what family members can do in order to save that property.
And I know this could be another tough question, Judge, but how many of those particular properties have actually gone into foreclosure?
Oftentimes, it depends. If a family member passes away, and let's say that family member was actually paying the mortgage, and family members are not willing in order to get that house refinanced, and that usually is the issue, is that the bank is going to ask one of the remaining family members if the house has not been deeded to you, but even if it's deeded to you, it's deeded subject to that mortgage.
Right.
And so we try to truly work and encourage family members to get a lawyer because especially the way the market is now, there are definite ways to ensure that a lot of it has to do with even failure to acknowledge the fact that you've been served with the paperwork and not answering, or freezing and waiting to the last minute. And so it happens, but then people are being educated, instructed to seek assistance, and lawyers are out there trying to assist those family members from, in hopes of assisting them so that they're not losing that property.
And what else do you want to educate people about, Judge, when it comes to these issues?
Everybody needs to have a will, and everybody needs to have a power of attorney. I don't care what your age is. You could be in an auto accident today. You could be in the hospital and you need to make sure that your finances and somebody's there to make decisions for you. Healthcare power of attorneys, so that if you were ill, whatever your wishes are actually followed. We would assist in reducing heirs property if individuals had wills, but you can't just have a will. You need to probate your will. You have 10 years in order to probate your will or to open your estate. And if you fail to do so, then you cannot probate your estate. You can only do something called a determination of heirs. So the importance of estate planning, I don't care if your estate is worth $25,000 or if it's worth $1 million, is extremely important. And then I also want to educate the community on elder abuse and elder fraud, which takes place throughout our community often. We have so many seniors that are being exploited And I want to make sure that our community is educated related to that issue, heirs property, and why you need to have estate planning, no matter what the value of your estate is.
And Zoom's telling me I'm having a few minutes left, but let me ask you this, Judge. During the 2021 calendar year, the probate court actually managed how many reopened cases?
When you say reopen, there's two processes. We can open a new estate, or sometimes people fail to complete opening estates and they may have to have reopened a new estate. I know that we have had, I know over the year 21, we probably opened over 1,000 or more estates. Ooh. Because we're averaging almost 200, 250, 300 a month, depending on the month. And those are just newly opened estates.
Wow.
So you see that no matter what happens, the numbers rarely change in terms of, give or take 20, 30 estates a month. And so we're opening a lot of estates within a year.
And I was looking at my research, but let me ask you this too, Judge. Are there any shadow cases?
What do you mean by shadow cases?
Yes, ma'am. Well, cases that could be, active, but they're not, well, like you mentioned earlier, you can't get to them right now because there's so much, overload and stuff.
Well, sometimes we have cases and people open them and they're inactive.
Right.
Because family members open them and they do nothing, but people receive notices. So you're going to receive a first letter, a second letter, and then a rule of show cause, basically saying, okay, this case has been inactive. Are there movement? With a lot of our cases, because we had COVID, we went through each and every one of them and did scheduling orders so that while people were out because of COVID, they could still move with litigation, making sure that discovery was done, depositions, interrogatories, so that when we did come back, if they needed an in-person hearing, and the entire time we were doing Zoom court. So we still do in-person court and Zoom court even now. Wow. Now that's the one thing that COVID assisted us with. It allowed us to have the tools that we needed in order to do Zoom court. So if you have a court or a hearing that's only going to last 30 minutes, then a lawyer and that party, even parties from out of state, are able to attend those hearings because they're able to attend by Zoom. So that's the one good thing that came out of COVID.
I'm glad you explained that because I screwed up the question completely. But
that's okay. That's okay.
Yes, ma'am. But let me ask you this: if you were to be elected probate court judge in November, how will you pursue and use new and emerging technologies to enhance access to the court?
I want to make sure, number one, that we use all technology that's available. But with that, I also realize that there are a contingency of our constituents who also want to do everything by paper.
Right.
So I want to make sure that both are available. Okay. Secondarily, again, I want to see what I can do to make sure that existing county buildings that we may have, that we're going to be able to offer, or that connectivity exists, so that I would be able to utilize those particular buildings also. And then the other thing is, I also want my material to be bilingual. Even if you have to answer in English, I want to be able to offer seminars bilingually, having translators available so that I can make sure that I'm also going out through all of the communities that exist, because we have depth from individuals and commitments from individuals who may not speak in English. And so I plan on using all technology available and both methods.
Now, how many of those Spanish-speaking people that actually come to your probate court and have come to the probate court in the past 2 years?
I don't know the exact specific because they come to the front desk. I know that we've had hearings. I had a hearing the other day where I had to have an interpreter who actually was a Mandarin interpreter, and that one was a Zoom hearing, and it was very interesting because we had to find someone who spoke Mandarin in a certain dialect, and so normally when individuals come and they may speak Spanish, they will bring an interpreter with them.
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
But with the 21st century, I want to make sure that this court is accessible. As I said, Charleston is a multicultural community, and I want to make sure that our court is also servicing everybody in all capacities.
Judge Tamara Curry, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups, because I had you on a couple of years ago.
Thank you. And I always enjoy seeing you, and I always wave
on
you
Broad
when
Street.
I see you
On Broad
walking
Street,
down the street. Yes.
Yes, right here on Broad Street. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you. And you provide such a wonderful service to our community. And so we thank you for having your podcast and definitely servicing our community.
Thank you.